Have you ever noticed that every school seemed to have one child who was unusually quiet, responsible, and never caused any trouble? They always completed their homework, remembered every school rule, and rarely asked for help. Teachers often praised them as being mature beyond their years, while classmates barely noticed them because they never demanded attention. On the surface, this looks like an ideal child, but psychologists suggest that this kind of early independence sometimes hides something much deeper than simple maturity. Many people assume childhood neglect only exists in homes filled with conflict or obvious abuse. In reality, emotional neglect is often much quieter. A child may grow up in a comfortable house with loving parents who provide food, education, and safety, yet still feel emotionally unseen. It can happen through countless small moments. A parent distracted by work, constantly checking a phone during conversations, or responding without truly listening. None of these moments seem harmful alone, but over many years, they can teach a child that their emotions are not important enough to share. Psychologists refer to this experience as childhood emotional neglect, CEN. Unlike physical abuse, emotional neglect leaves no visible scars, making it incredibly difficult to recognize. Since nothing dramatic appears to happen, many children grow up believing that feeling emotionally empty is simply part of who they are. As adults, they often struggle to explain why they feel disconnected despite having what others would describe as a normal childhood. Interestingly, children raised in emotionally distant environments often become exceptionally observant. Their brains begin paying close attention to subtle emotional signals around them. A parent's facial expression, tone of voice, or silence quickly becomes valuable information. Without realizing it, they develop an ability to predict moods and avoid conflict. Over time, this survival strategy transforms into extraordinary sensitivity toward other people's emotions, even while they struggle to understand their own. This heightened awareness doesn't simply disappear in adulthood. Instead, it often shows up in everyday behaviors. These individuals hesitate before asking for help, apologize even when they've done nothing wrong, and constantly worry about inconveniencing others. They become the friends who always support everyone else, but rarely share their own struggles. Many feel uncomfortable receiving kindness, because depending on others was never something they learned to trust. From the outside, these people often appear incredibly capable. They remember birthdays, solve problems efficiently, stay organized, and rarely complain. Others admire their independence, unaware that this independence was originally built as a survival skill rather than a personal choice. After spending years convincing themselves that their needs didn't matter, even simple questions like, "What would you like?" can feel surprisingly difficult to answer. Another lasting effect is the inner voice many adults carry with them. It quietly says things like, "Don't make a big deal out of this. Other people have it worse," or "Just handle it yourself." Although it sounds practical, this voice usually developed during childhood as a way of avoiding disappointment. Over the years, it becomes an automatic habit that continues long after the original environment has changed. Research has shown that emotional care plays a significant role in healthy brain development. Studies involving children who experienced severe emotional deprivation found noticeable differences in brain activity compared with children raised in stable, nurturing families. Encouragingly, researchers also discovered that when children received consistent, caring relationships early enough, many of these developmental differences gradually improved. This reminds us that emotional connection is not simply comforting. It is an essential part of healthy psychological growth. Understanding these patterns helps explain why some adults become fiercely independent or emotionally exhausted. Hyper-independence is often less about confidence and more about learning from an early age that relying on others didn't feel safe. Likewise, people who become overwhelmed by emotional situations may have spent much of childhood managing both their own feelings and the emotions of those around them. What appears to be a personality trait is sometimes an adaptation developed for survival. The encouraging news is that these patterns are not permanent. The human brain remains capable of change throughout life. Healing usually doesn't happen through dramatic breakthroughs, but through consistent experiences of safety, trust, and emotional support. Learning to accept kindness, express personal needs, and believe that your feelings matter takes time, but it is entirely possible. If you are the child who never caused problems and always seemed easy, remember this: your quiet strength was never proof that you needed less love. It was simply the way your younger self learned to cope. And today, you have the opportunity to choose a healthier way forward, one where your emotions deserve just as much attention as everyone else's.